When you're running for office, your name is on the ballot. So why not have your website be your name? If your name is John Smith, you need a .vote web address that says www.johnsmith.vote. 2022 will come faster than you think. Visit GoDaddy today and kick off your new campaign with a new personalized web address.
All right, welcome to Breaking Battlegrounds with your hosts Chuck Warren and Sam Stone. We have kind of a special show for you today and maybe a little bit of a heart-rending opening to this program, more so than usual, Chuck.
Yes.
On the line with us today, Brad Harrison, his daughter Sofiya. Sofiya's mom, Brad's wife, could not be with him, and we're going to let you begin by telling us why your wife, Anna, is not with you and her daughter today, fleeing from Ukraine.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Really, it's kind of a difficult time for us right now. It's a very long story. It started over a year ago. We came to the USA after I quit my job in Dubai. I'd been there for 13 years. And she was on a 10-year visit visa at the time. And they canceled it. Mainly, it started due to the COVID situation. We didn't know that they were not taking in visitors at the time. And then also they thought that we were immigrating at the time. And they had no sympathy at all about us just coming for a visit and trying to figure things out and still going through any legal process that was necessary. We would have left the country again, if it was necessary to do that, but they had zero sympathy. They canceled her visa, and I had to book a flight immediately from the airport for my wife and daughter to fly to Ukraine. I then spent
and Brad, your wife is a Ukrainian citizen, right?
Correct. Yeah. So immediately the next day after flying them back out, I went and secured a lawyer and started the processing for her immigration. And after I did that, I flew to Ukraine to be with my family. I'm trying to keep them together, all of us together, for the last year. So I'd spend 90 days in Ukraine and then another 90 in USA because that's all I could do in Ukraine. And then immigration processing going, waiting for all of that approval, and then the war starts. I left about 10 days prior because my 90 days up in Ukraine came forth, and I went, we just didn't think that, obviously, I don't think, especially anybody in Kharkiv, Ukraine, thought that Russia was going to carpet bomb their city.
So let me stop you there for a minute. So you're in Ukraine, you leave 10 days before the war breaks out. Was the feeling on the
Correct.
ground, because your wife's Ukrainian, so you're not a tourist, you're not at the local hotel. Did people not believe this was going to happen?
Yeah, I'd say, a good 90% of the people in Kharkiv, there was some, that were pretty frightened and leaving, but you really didn't know which side to believe. And, I know a lot of the history about what's going on in Ukraine, and Donetsk and Lugansk to the east of us was the regions under play. And we were, obviously, I think most people just thought that if it was going to get bad, it would get bad there first, and then they would have time to leave. But it didn't happen like that, as you know. It was, Anna and Sofiya, they were in our apartment, and it all just started one morning at 5 a.m., and it didn't let up day and night, bombing in our neighborhood for 3 days and nights, and they couldn't go anywhere. My wife, it would be February 27th in the morning, she sensed a pause in the bombings, and being kind of prepared to leave, she drove around the city, collecting her mother, 70 years old, and my 25-year-old stepson, separate apartments. My brother-in-law and sister joined. Their house was bombed. Probably, not existing now. They joined. So in two cars, they left the city as the Russian troops were taking over the streets. And I think that they got out within minutes, because I'm seeing videos on YouTube of streets where they would have been on that day. And it was actual, battle going on.
What city was it?
Sofiya saw.
What city was this again, Brian? Brad, I mean?
Kharkiv. Yeah, they pronounce it kind of incorrectly on all the news. They say Kharkiv, but it's Kharkiv. It's Kharkiv. It's the second largest city. It's in the northeast. Our apartment was about 15 miles away from the Russian border, so it's a big city, about 1.5 million people, and it used to be the capital of Ukraine prior to USSR breaking up. A lot of architecture, a lot of history to it. So people were thinking that, back to you asking what people thought, people were just thinking that the Russians and Putin loved the city and probably wouldn't destroy it because they wouldn't want to destroy that. But they escaped the bombings in Kharkiv, and then they drove for about 6 days through Ukraine, going around different cities that were being bombed. They were in forests and on back roads and staying at, friends of friends' houses that would help out. And finally made it to the border of Romania. We had some friends in Romania that were saying, come to us. And the men are still in Ukraine. And the women got out and they had to split up. Some went to Germany, some went to Sweden. It's been a crazy time. Really.
So explain to us again. Explain to our audience again. How did they get out of Ukraine? You're saying they went to different countries. How did they do it? Did they take a train? Was it just car? What did they do?
Well, luckily I bought a car. A couple months before. We were thinking we'd be there for a while, waiting for this immigration processing. So I secured an apartment and, bought a car, and that's how they did it. Some people were leaving by train, but lucky they had a car, because trains were packed. If you see any of the YouTube videos on people leaving the trains, there's just chaos. You can even hear gunshots, people trying to, get on board. Of course, probably not happening right now, but back at the time that they were leaving. So yeah, luckily cars, we had luckily enough gas to get far out of the city. At the time, they were only giving them 5 gallons at a time. My brother-in-law, he tried to leave the city a couple days later, and it took him 14 hours to fill up his car. I'm not kidding. Yeah.
Wow.
It was.
Where's he at?
Yeah.
Where's he at? Where's your brother-in-law at now?
My brother-in-law, his name's Stas. He and his family, their building was bombed. We're all kind of in this neighborhood called Saltivka. It's in the northwest part of Kharkiv, and it's 300 to 400,000 people in this neighborhood. But probably I'd guess 80-90% of all those buildings have been bombed. He left, and he's in a small village, at least far away from the city we know of. But he doesn't speak any English. A lot of these people, some of my relatives don't speak any English. That's why they decided to stay, because it's just, they're just hoping for a peace or a truce or whatever. Just, their life is there. So they have to just survive and go back to whoever owns the place after.
So
if that makes sense.
So Anna and Sofiya, where did you guys go? Once you leave Ukraine, where did you go?
We went to first we went to Romania, and then we went to Mexico, and then we came here. But then my mom wasn't allowed to come here.
So Anna's now in Mexico. You went to Mexico. You went to Tijuana?
No.
Okay.
Actually, let me just correct that. So we've had a lot of support from senators before doing this. So I've got letters from Senator Mike McKell, the offices of Mike Lee, Mitt Romney. They are all aware, and we had support from their office about doing what we did, and even the offices sent emails to the Customs and Border Patrol before we tried to cross to say, hey, we've got this family, they're driving this vehicle, they're going to be there at this time. We recommend that you give Anna humanitarian parole. We'll figure out everything, with her immigration processing, which, by the way, her I-130 visa processing was actually the first portion of it approved. And I got it the morning that they were leaving Romania. But with all the news that was out, the Biden administration was going to accept 100,000 refugees. Joe Biden on March 11th said something to the effect, we will welcome the refugees with open arms if they can make it to the border. All this went into our decisions of, what do I have my family still in Romania or somewhere in Europe? Well, possibly, World War III breaks out, and no, I'm not. If they're going, and I saw YouTube videos and other news stories of other Ukrainians getting in. So my decision, of course, was, well, why wouldn't they let my wife in also? She's not a criminal, and we'll work it out. But no, we got to the border. We drove up. They took us into a secondary area, and they took her back to a building for about 10 minutes. She came back crying her eyes out and telling us that they were going to take her. And mostly probably because she had a canceled visit visa a year ago. They wouldn't look at any of our documents. They wouldn't even let her take documents. She took, I think, one change of clothes. She wanted to take documents, but they told her that it wouldn't do any good anyway.
Who is they, by the way? Is this the Mexican authorities? Is it U.S. authorities? Who is what they?
No, we're not dealing with Mexican authorities at all. This is our own American Customs.
Okay, so it's U.S. authorities. They take her back, one change of clothes. Your documents expire. We're not going to look at anything else that you have. Is that correct?
Yes, basically in her passport there was a sticker that said her visit visa had been canceled, and I think once they saw that, just immediate criminal, and they wouldn't look at any support letters. They wouldn't look at the printed out emails that I had from Senator Mike Lee and Mitt Romney's office. They wouldn't really. They didn't. They took her phone. It's she's not been able to call out. It's been 88 hours now. So it's been 3 days and 16 hours.
Brad, I'm going to have to stop you there. We have to go to break here in just a few seconds. We're going to bring you back on for the next segment to continue. I really want to know what's happening here, Chuck.
No, this is mind-boggling.
Breaking Battlegrounds. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. I'm your host, Chuck Warren of Sam Stone. Today we have a real story. We have with us Brad Harrison and his daughter, Sofiya. Brad is married to a Ukrainian woman. Him and his daughter were able to get past the Mexico border. Brad is a U.S. citizen. Anna was taken by U.S. Border and Customs. That's where we left off at the break. So, Brad, you went out. She comes out. She's in tears. They let her take one pair of clothes. They take her cell phone. When's the last time you heard from her?
It's been 3 days and 16 hours ago, so about 88 hours ago.
So what are
information.
What are they saying? Do they know where she's at?
I'll give you a twist here. About 10 minutes before this podcast, my lawyer got an email from CBP saying that they didn't have her in their system. And my lawyers already checked with ICE, and they confirmed that they do not have her in the system. So essentially, and that's what I was just telling Senator McKell, that they've lost her.
This whole thing is stunning to me.
So what does that mean? I mean, is she in U.S. custody there? I mean, what does that mean they lost her?
Well, she would have to be somewhere in their system. Like I was saying before, this has nothing to do with Mexican authorities. We just drove right, through Mexico and everything fine. This all happened at U.S. Customs Border Patrol. And the last time I saw her was walking into their building.
So what?
I know, shocking.
Sam, go ahead.
Well, I mean, first off, we've been talking a lot about the border on this program lately, and one of the conditions for automatic entry under asylum request is being a Ukrainian citizen right now.
We don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, this is really going against everything they're saying. You can come up with a cartel, pay to get smuggled through the border, and they're letting you in, but they're not letting this family be reunited. This is baffling.
Do you know any other Ukrainian family members or friends who are down in Mexico who can't get across either?
No, I don't know anybody personally, but I saw on a lot of news stories and a lot of YouTube videos, people from Ukraine getting across. I was at the Tijuana airport and kind of made friends with a guy from Massachusetts. He was originally Kazakhstan and American citizen now, but he was there on a church function helping Ukrainians. And while we were talking, there was 200 or 300 people that came through. They welcomed, and they were going to take them to the border. He said that they've been doing it for the last week, taking them to the border, advising them what to say, and they had church members or just citizens on the other side accepting them and helping them out. So they're crossing, but yet my wife is being treated like this mastermind criminal that they finally caught.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. She has no criminal background. I don't have a criminal background. It's baffling.
Her visitor's visa, according from what you said, was just canceled due to COVID because they weren't allowing people in at that time. Is that right?
Mainly that's what started it all. Yeah. They started questioning, and then they started, thinking, oh, okay, so you're coming here to immigrate. And, we said, well, actually, we're just coming here on a visit to decide what we're going to do. And we'll do whatever needs to be done.
You're an American citizen. She's entitled to immigrate here, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And we've been married 10 years. We have a U.S. citizen daughter together.
Sofiya, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, but I'm still pretty sad because she's not with us. I'm pretty scared because I don't know if she's okay. I don't know where she is. I don't know what's happening.
So, Brad, what are your next steps? What are you trying to do now?
There's so many angles that but I'm getting roadblocks everywhere. Senators' offices, like you heard, I was on the phone. I'm trying to get people to call Governor Cox of Utah. His phone line's trying to blow that up to show that somebody needs to do something. Could we get some support that way? I don't know. I want to go down to the building again and just see if I can rattle some chains, but it was pointless the last time we were there. There's no access. They don't have a desk, for example. There's no website. There's no way to call in. They just tell you, oh, we'll Google the number, and you Google it and call it, and it's a roundabout, recording that gets you nowhere. So this is where my lawyer learned that they don't know where she's at. Is she tried to file a G-28, which is essentially a form that says that you are representing someone. When she got that back, that's where they said, we don't have her in our system. This was only, 45 minutes ago. So, I don't know about legalities, but and the actual terminology, the actual written laws, but I was told that 72 hours is usually maximum. Even like a hardened criminal gets to call somebody or get legal counsel within 72 hours. And, the U.S. Constitution falls in line and supports my wife right now because she's on U.S. soil.
Wow. I'm speechless, Chuck.
Yeah, I just don't even know what to ask. I mean, I'm sort of stunned by the whole thing, especially when we say we're bringing in 100,000 Ukrainians.
Well, and when being a citizen from Ukraine is defined at the moment as clear grounds for immediate entry asylum.
Yes, yes.
And it's a far more legitimate grounds than anything else out there in the world right now. You're talking about someone who's been married to an American citizen for 10 years. This just screams government incompetence.
Brad, what can people do who are listening to help you?
Right now, they could call Governor Cox.
Wait, is Governor Cox the right one? It's not Lee. I mean, don't Senator Lee and Romney have more sway in this than a Governor Cox?
I would say, call them all.
Brad, if I can add to that for all of our listeners in Arizona, in Florida, around the country, call your governor, call your federal representatives, call your senators, call your Congress members, ask them about this case, because this is stunning and wrong.
Yeah, we don't know where she's at. Can you imagine?
No.
I mean, it's 4 days now. Sofiya's just learning this. I didn't tell her before this podcast that we don't know where she's at. So, she's okay. Okay. It's how can they do this? Really, it's like a simple thing to make a phone call from someone there to just tell me something.
Brad, I apologize. We're coming to the end of this segment here. I thank you for being on the program today and for sharing this story with us. Folks, we're going to have some information on our website and on all our social media, how you can potentially help this family. Folks, Breaking Battlegrounds. We'll be back in just a moment.
"2020 sure was a fun political year, wasn't it? Well, if you're up for the challenge of taking on the political field in 2022, then you can get a head start on all your opponents by going to GoDaddy.com and securing a .vote web address with your first and last name. Get started today before any of your competitors do."
Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds with your hosts Sam Stone and Chuck Warren. Heartbreaking story we just finished up, and hopefully even by the time you hear this it will be resolved. But now we have something a little more hopeful for you. We have Jeremy Hunt, a Georgia native, a graduate of West Point, spent 5 years as an active duty Army intelligence officer, a captain in the U.S. Army. Upon his return from a deployment to Ukraine, Jeremy embarked on a new mission as a husband and father. He has written some fantastic op-eds. I highly recommend folks check them out for Fox News, the New York Post, Washington Post, done tons of TV appearances, and now he is running for Congress in a very hotly contested district that Democrats are desperate to hold on to in Georgia. Jeremy, welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, it's an honor to be on with you. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
Jeremy, what I always have to ask this of people who are running for Congress. How'd you get this crazy, terrible idea in your head?
Yes, anybody who runs for Congress is just like a little bit of crazy. That is very true. Well, for me, my wife and I, we spent a lot of time in prayer and just kind of thinking about how can we make the greatest impact and serve our country. We were transitioning out of the Army, and we realized that if we really want to make real change, we need serious leaders in Washington. And the very kind of last straw that made us, decide to jump in was that we realized that the next generation in particular, we are losing them. I mean, young people today, my little sister-in-law, she's only 17 years old, she grew up in a conservative family, just like my wife and I did. But it's just sad that she does not quite understand the values that we have. And we realize that when our young folks are just on TikTok and these apps and everything every day, they aren't even hearing the Christian conservative message at all. And so we felt that our campaign, a big part of what we need to do is outreach and reach and build broader coalitions of people, specifically here in our district in Southwest Georgia.
I think there is, Jeremy, I think what you're talking about is so profound, because there's just an enormous disconnect right now between youth TikTok culture, the messages that are being forced down kids' throats by an unending barrage of social media, and the values of most Americans. And you've written a lot about that type of thing, but how do you see us turning that around and reconnecting with this next generation?
Yeah, well, first we have to show up. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, if you look at a lot of the ways that our young people are getting information, we aren't even on a lot of these apps, TikTok or Facebook, and Instagram, and actually targeting them and sharing our message in a compelling way. I think that's first off, showing up here in our district as well. One thing that we're doing is going and meeting with young folks at schools and organizations, and actually saying, hey, we're here. We're here to support you, and here's what we believe, and articulating it in a way that helps win people. And that's what we're all about. We're winning people. Our district, of course, is not one that's going to be, it's one that we're going to have to actually reach out and build those broader coalitions, or else we will not be successful. So that's why we are, from day one, that's been kind of the heartbeat of our campaign.
And obviously it's connecting with voters, because now all of a sudden I hear this has turned into a real concern. You are scaring a lot of big-name Democrats.
Oh yeah. Nancy Pelosi is they are very nervous. They've just pumped $2.6 million into our district to try to save Sanford Bishop, because they see that this is a really winnable seat. I mean, Sanford is the most vulnerable he's ever been, and at this point, we realize, especially, half of the voters in our district a lot of them are traditional Democrat voters. The demographics of our district, many of them are African American, and a lot of what we do is we're going into Black churches, we're going into Black organizations, bringing our message and saying, look, we are here. We're standing for families. We're standing for our country. We are pro-family, pro-country. We believe that our churches are where we have to strengthen our churches and our communities. And so when our message, we take Republican, Democrat out of it and just talking about what we believe, and specifically talking about how we're the ones that are going to help get our country back on track. I mean, folks are tired of paying $4 or $5 at the pump. Our farmers, our diesel prices, the diesel and the tractors has gotten just astronomical. And so we are the ones that are showing up and actually saying, we're here to represent our community.
So we have 1 minute left before our next break here. Why don't you quickly tell our folks where they can find you on social media? And then we're going to take the break, and we'll be back. We have more questions. There's a longer segment coming up.
Awesome. Yes, you can join me at jeremyforgeorgia.com. That's JEREMY for Georgia.com. We'd love to have you join us, and I'm excited to continue our talk.
How about Twitter and Facebook? Where can they find you there?
Yep. You can find me at @VJeremyHunt on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram @VJeremyHunt, and you can add us right there.
Perfect. Breaking Battlegrounds. We'll be right back with Jeremy Hunt, who is in the middle of a battle in a major battleground. Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds with your host, Chuck Warren. I'm Sam Stone. On the line with us right now, Jeremy Hunt, a graduate of West Point, captain in the U.S. Army, now running for Congress in what will likely be one of the most hotly contested districts in the country this year in the state of Georgia. Jeremy, again, thank you for joining us on the program. When we went to break, you were talking about, I think, one of the most important things that candidates can do right now, which is reconnect with a lot of voters who are being left behind by a Democratic agenda that is driven by elites and driven by a really bizarre cancel culture phenomenon that is even targeting some of the great leaders of Black history.
Yeah.
And go right ahead. You've written about this, and I really want our listeners to be able to hear your take on some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, so what we've noticed is that the Democrat Party, what they do is they have gone in, especially in communities like ours, and they play the same old strategy every time. They try to stir up some type of racial unrest. I mean, it's the same playbook every time. And in our district in particular, they see us as ripe for that just because of the demographics, being half of our district being black voters here in the deep South. And, the problem is that people can see right through it. I mean, when you go around our district, folks of all different backgrounds, all different colors, all different cultures work together. We're all trying to make sure we can provide for our families. All of our small businesses, the owners, whether they're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. They are all dealing with a major labor shortage, the inflation, our empty store shelves. We're all dealing with the same thing. And so just playing the same race card over and over again is a distraction. But they do this even at the national level. You look at the way they talk about race in particular. It's always to divide people. If you're black, you're a victim, and if you're white, then you are an oppressor just by the color of their skin. And so we push back on that and saying, look, this is not the Democrat agenda is not going to work in our community because we know the truth, and we know that we worked with our neighbors side by side for decades, and so that's why they're so nervous now, is because they realize that the same play that they always use is just not going to work here. And especially with my family being a young black conservative family, we show up and we campaign on the trail, all of us together. And there's one thing that really bothers Democrats, is seeing a young black conservative family that knows what they believe and are unwavering in their values. And that's what our campaign represents.
We're with Jeremy Hunt, Republicans, CD2 in Georgia. So, Jeremy, I want to touch on that last point. How are you received when you make a request to go speak in a black church? It's 90% of black electorate votes Democrat, maybe 85%, depends where you're at. How are you received by not only the pastors that you have to get permission, and I'm sure they also have their board of governors or board of directors, but then once you're there, how does the congregation treat you? I mean, you got to figure that most of them have never voted Republican or considered voting Republican.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's home, right? I mean, my dad's a pastor. I grew up in the church. My wife and I, we actually met in children's church at our church. Her father was our Sunday school teacher, and my father was the assistant pastor of the church. And so, I grew up in the black church. It's home. I've spoken many a time. I mean, so it's something that when we're going and speaking, it's not like we're, from the outside looking in, trying to reach people. We're actually just talking about things that we've been talking about all of our lives, our biblical values. We're very strong pro-life. Many of our folks and congregations across our district are also pro-life. And so we're just asking them to vote in alignment with their values, the values that they already hold as pro-life, pro-America, pro-religious liberty, saying, hey, vote according to what you already believe. That's our message, and it's been very positively received. I've been so thankful that around the district, we've had folks that have reached out to us before we can even get to them. Several black pastors said, hey, would you come and
how many
church?
How many churches have you spoken in?
Yeah, we're almost at 10 now, just in the last few weeks. We just started kicking off our kind of ministry outreach, but we're obviously going to be kicking that up a lot more in the coming weeks. It's amazing, we've only been in this race for a little over 2 months. And we have already, our fundraising records, we're already almost at $500,000 we've raised. We've been all over the district, and we're just continuing to kind of kick in high gear as we move forward.
So CD2 in Georgia is, if my memory serves me correct, it's about 51% black electorate, correct?
That's right. Just about.
So what is your accounting? I mean, what is the math? Because, at the end of the day, elections are all about math. Right?
Yeah.
You have to have more than the other person. I know that's just a simplistic way of looking at it, but that's reality. What percentage of the black vote do you need to get to win that race?
Yeah. We basically have to outperform a generic Republican candidate by 3% in the black community. So we're looking at, again, about 18%, 15 to 18% is going to be our sweet spot. And a big part of what we're going to do is as I mentioned, our strategy was reaching and engaging them, but also registering new voters and speaking to folks, of all backgrounds that are, very kind of culturally conservative, even if they might vote Democrat in the past. We're asking for every vote, and we're showing up in places that the conservative message has not even gone before. We're there. And that's a big part of our strategy. Also, another big part is making sure Republicans turn out and juicing Republicans turn out. I mean, we can't just assume that just because it's going to be a wave year, the
right.
Republicans are going to come out. We are having to share the message that, look, we have to get out and vote. We have to get to the polls. We have to make sure that we are giving our best effort on both sides. So it's an all of the above approach. It's not just one, kind of strategy. It's an all of the above approach. But what we're seeing is that it's working, and we're excited. We've got some major endorsements just at the national level. Secretary Mike Pompeo has endorsed me, and Senator Tom Cotton, Senator Josh Hawley, Secretary Ryan Zinke, and Congressman Mike Waltz, and the Frontline Patriots PACs. I mean, folks from all over are just so excited about our district and the opportunity to flip this seat. And that's what really has Pelosi and Sanford Bishop nervous, is that we have a lot of support all around the country, and in our district is a stirring here saying, look, we're ready to try something new. And folks who have even traditionally voted for the Democrat incumbent for the first time are saying we're ready for an alternative, because what's happened in the past is not working. Our schools are not getting any better. Our streets are not safe, and our store shelves continue to be empty. So we're just showing up and saying we're that alternative you've been looking for.
Jeremy, I think that is such a key point, and it's something we like to talk about here on the program, is that a lot of times these people that you need to come across the aisle or come out and vote for you, I think our candidates forget you have to do the outreach yourself. The media is not going to carry your message. The social media networks only extend so far. It sounds like you're using that Army work ethic and training just to go out there and get in front of these folks, shake the hands, meet all the people.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, we were just at the Peanut Proud Festival in Blakely, Georgia, and it was amazing that we got to the festival, and you see that the Democrat incumbent, Sanford Bishop, who, by the way, has been in office for 30 years, and before then he was in the State House for another 17 years. So he's been in public office. He's been a career politician for 47 years. A much older guy, and he's just kind of sitting on his truck as they're going through the festival, and he doesn't really do much. Whereas our campaign, we had a huge float for the parade, but my wife and I were on the ground, running alongside the parade, shaking every single hand of all the folks that came out to watch the parade. I mean, and so we are fully engaged. We have the energy to do this thing, and that's really what's going to make the difference. Is that we're putting in the work, we're knocking on the doors. We aren't just, hoping that the red wave in 2022 will just carry us into the seat. We're going out and asking for every vote. And that's what we think will be the major difference.
Well, and this is Chuck. We're with Jeremy Hunt. He is a Republican candidate for CD2 in Georgia. Jeremy, tell me two questions quickly here. One, how did being a captain, an Army intelligence officer, prepare you to be in Congress? And two, how do we, as a nation, go forward now with basically a dual threat of Russia and China? We're in sort of a new Cold War in many ways. I think it's a little bit different because of the economic entanglements of China. But let's be honest, they don't want us to be in the position we've been for the past several decades. So first, how to be an intelligence officer, what skills are you taking there to Congress? And then two, what is your view of this new national security threat we have?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned earlier, I graduated from West Point and got my jump plane, became a paratrooper here at Fort Benning, and I was actually deployed to Ukraine back in 2016, and we were there training the Ukrainian armed forces back when, at that point, Putin had already taken Crimea during the Obama administration, and he was basically just waiting to take the rest of the country. We knew this several years ago. We knew that he was eyeing Ukraine. He was basically waiting for a moment of weakness in our White House, and unfortunately, he found that in Biden. Just the kind of weakness that we've seen from the way his foreign policy has been operating. And so, back then, we're training the Ukrainian armed forces to defend themselves against Russia, and I must say I'm very proud of the way that the fight they put up. I mean, they are literally giving their lives for their country, defending their homeland, and you can just search for the stories of heroism. And I'm just extremely proud of them. And so we knew that back then. The number one reason why Putin, basically used this moment is A, he saw that our commander-in-chief, would do very little about it, and B, he knew that he has held Eastern Europe hostage with energy. I mean, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, basically, he is controlling energy production in Europe, and that's how he's made Germany and other countries kind of surrender to his demands. That's why we have to stay energy independent here in the United States. I mean, we cannot be in a position where we're dependent on foreign oil. That is a national security issue. And then secondly, another kind of national security issue that I think is extremely important is that we cannot take our eye off of China. China is the number one geopolitical enemy that we have right now. They are moving at a pace that we've never seen before. I mean, they are developing supersonic missiles that our radar systems cannot even detect. And they want the Chinese currency to replace the American dollar as the global reserve currency. And they mean business. I mean, they are going around to several different countries and basically holding them hostage to their debt. And it is a major problem that we have to, as United States, have to be smart about the way that we are crafting policy. And we have to start being independent here, bringing jobs, keeping jobs here in America, and strengthening our country. Because we know that when we strengthen our country here, we bring jobs back home, and we strengthen our military here, that ensures peace abroad.
What is there's been quite a bit of discussion about President Biden's comments that Putin is a war criminal. I believe he's a war criminal.
Agreed.
Is that something he should say? What are your thoughts on that? Can we, as a country, a leader of the free world, allow him to continue to be what he's doing?
You know, first off, what Putin done is evil. I mean, he is no doubt a KGB thug. I mean, that is who he is. And we have to stand up to him. But the problem is that the way you stand up to Putin is not through saying mean things about him.
Correct.
I mean, Biden, until he's blue in the face, can say, can say what I just said. He's a thug, he's evil, war criminal. You say all these things. Putin doesn't care. What he cares is he responds to strength. And what has Biden done with our military in the last year? Well, let's just review. 1 year ago, at this time last year, Biden said that the number one issue in the military is white supremacy, and we need to root out white supremacists in the United States military. He wasn't focused on training our soldiers and making sure that we're ready to go up against our adversaries abroad. He wasn't investing and making sure they had the resources and the equipment and everything to make sure they're ready for the mission. No, he was going on this witch hunt for white supremacy. And then you fast forward a little longer, and then we had the huge just mess in Afghanistan. The way that he pulled out without any kind of plan, I mean, just made horrible strategic issues there. All of his kind of just, he telegraphs everything he's going to do, and all of his kind of blunders have added up over time. And Putin can see this, and our other adversaries have seen just how weak our commander-in-chief is and our failed foreign policy out of the White House. And so if we had a stronger military, that's what Putin responds to. It's not just words or sending mean letters.
Absolutely, Jeremy. Let me stop you here because we have to go to break here in about 30 seconds. But one last time, I think I love what you're saying. I think a lot of our listeners will. Tell folks how they can follow you, how they can find you, and how they can support your campaign.
Yes, please. We'd love to have your support. Even if you're able just to chip in just $5, $10, $15, it really goes a long way. You can find us on our website, jeremyforgeorgia.com. That's JEREMYFOR Georgia spelled out, jeremyforgeorgia.com. And you can also add us on social media on Twitter, Instagram at @TheJeremyHunt, on Facebook as well. Follow us. And please.
Fantastic. Jeremy, thank you so much. We love having you on the program. Love to have you on again. Breaking Battlegrounds, back next week.
Running for office? You need a campaign website. Introducing the web address of the democratic process, .vote. So how do you purchase your .vote website? Visit www.yourname.vote. Type your website name, example www.johnsmith.vote. It's available. Add your web address to your cart and check out. Once checked out and have received confirmation, you may begin to create and utilize your website to connect and engage voters. To learn more, visit get.vote. Happy campaigning!